Any paint job on anything, whether it's a car or guitar, you can tell if it's gonna hold up not by looking at it the day that you paint it, but the day after. In any paint job, I'm always way more concerned about dry spots than I am drips, and you can see this one has a few drips on it. And those are easy to take care of. Dry spots are very, very difficult to take care of. There's a couple drips out there on the end. I don't know if that'll focus or not, but a couple drips out there on the end, one down the side. But we can address all of those. And full disclosure, this paint job does have some blems in it, and it's because I painted it way too cold. It was about 50 degrees in the garage when I painted it. But I'm moving, and this is my last weekend here, so last weekend I knew I had to get it painted last weekend and then get it buffed this weekend because my air compressor will go bye-bye for a while. There are quite a few different tools I use when I'm cutting and buffing clear. First off, I always let it dry at least a week. Anything less than that and the clear is going to be a little spongy and it may die back. So the first is a razor blade, and this is to take care of drips. I'll show you how that's done. A paint stick is a very hard surface to cut finish with. So the first cut sometimes I'll do with this is on a very flat surface. These are Durablocks. They're used in the automotive industry for refinishing cars, but you can use them for anything. And they're fairly stiff, but they do flex, so they're really great for guitar bodies and, you know, getting them flat and smooth. This is a round Durablock, good for getting into curves and weird spaces. Then this is just some foundation insulation foam covered in tape, and sometimes I'll wrap sandpaper around it, and it just conforms to any weird contour that you might have. So just kind of a handy little get in this weird spot without having to use your finger. This one is a hard and soft. This side is softer than this side. This side's pretty hard. Then this is I think it's Motorcraft makes these. It's a soft block, hard block, and these are really spongy. Both sides are fairly spongy. This one's really spongy, but it's good when you get into the higher grits. You're not really looking to flatten out, you're just looking to polish. And then lastly is a wet dry rubber squeegee, and this you can get the water off of what you're sanding, and it just helps clarify what areas need help. I'm losing my voice. A lot of guys go through every single grit, and they'll go 800, 1000, 1200, 1500, you know, on down the line. You don't have to do that. You can skip grits. At this level, the grit is so fine that the difference between 1500 and 2000 is almost negligible. What I like to do is I start with 600 to get out any orange peel, and then I move to 1500 and then 2000, and then I polish after 2000. There's no real reason to go above 2000 unless you just don't want to buff. If you're on a guitar, guitars are so small they're easy to buff, but 600 will cut out the orange peel, and you just want to be careful with it. You don't want to overcut with it. And then 1500 will take out all those scratches. 2000 will take out all of those scratches. There's one big drip along here, so we're going to address that first because that's going to be the most difficult, and that's what I like to start with, is the most difficult piece. Now you can see that it's pretty darn flat after the razor blade. We got rid of the drip part. That was about 10 minutes worth of razor blading, and you have to be careful. Some people tape the edges of their razor blades. I tend not to do that just because I've been doing this a while. But you can see the orange peel starting to come through, and that means it's time for sandpaper. If you cut your sheets so that they're the same length as your block, you can fold them over 3 times, so you got this surface, and then you can unfold it and get that surface. I've got a squirt bottle. This is Dawn and water, and then I've got a bucket here. I usually put 1 drop of Dawn in a bucket. Any type of debris is going to screw this operation up something fierce. So you can let your paper soak for a little bit. You can wet the guitar down. You can always feel what's going on. But I'm just gonna let the camera run while I do this. So this will be side number 1. There's a little orange peel across there, and we'll work on that. Then down here, a little less, but it looks like we've almost got a little bit of a drip there. Dry back here, I didn't sound on that much, but then where we had our drips, where we really concentrated with the razor blade, all that is in very, very good shape. So a couple more swipes with the 600, and we should be pretty flat. Here's another spot where I said I thought I might have a drip. So we're just gonna come in here and flatten it a little bit. And a lot of times around rims like this, you'll get a little buildup, and it's just the surface tension from the paint when it's wet. So you just go in and cut them off, no big deal. But you do have to be careful because the paint underneath can be doing the same thing, and you can take the color off at the same time. So this is the end of the 600. You can see just a little bit of orange peel here and there. It probably looks worse in the camera than it is in real life, but we do want to leave just a little bit of that because we're going to follow up with our 1500 and 2000, and we want to make sure there's material left to take. We switched over to our 1500 grit. We're going in X patterns, so I like to make sure I'm not making streaks, but you can actually feel the paper. It'll be rough when you start, and then it'll just smooth out almost like the paper wants to take off across the guitar, and that's when you know you've cut far enough for the 1500. So again, just X patterns, just trying to make sure we don't get big streaks across this thing. And I work in sections, I don't just start the whole guitar. You can see I start at the horns there, and then we work across the middle, and it doesn't take much. At this grit, when the guitar's already this flat, it does not take much to work through the grits. But if you hear a weird squeak sound as you're sanding, stop, because you're probably putting a scratch into your finish. And at this point it's microscopic. So let's take a look at this orange peel now. We're zoomed way in, and it's getting to be finer and finer, the orange peel, as we get down through the grits. So we'll go 2000 grit next. This is looking pretty good to me. I'll give it one inspection, not through the camera lens. So there's our final look after 2000. Again, you can see a little bit of peel in there, and that's okay. For the top side of the guitar, I'm going to do things a little bit differently. There were no drips up here, so we're not going to start with 600. I'm going to start with 1500 because I absolutely do not want any blemishes on the finish here. I don't want to burn through anywhere. I would rather err on the side of orange peel on the top of the guitar than getting it perfectly smooth. You'll notice I'm going to stay away from all of the sharp edges with the sandpaper, and the reality is the highlights will come off of those sharp edges whether they're a little peely or not. So there's not a whole lot of reason to get down in there and really focus on on making these edges perfectly smooth. The other one is finish runs off, and the high spots or the sharp edges, the finish has, the clear has a much more difficult time sticking than it does on the flat spots like this. So you have less material here to sand. And just looking at the highlights here in the garage, they already look really good coming off those edges. So we're not going to concentrate on those. I'll probably just blow over them with 2000 just a little bit, just to make sure that we've got a little tooth there so everything's even. I can already feel this area is just dead flat. That area is dead flat. It's a little peely right in here, so that's where I'm concentrating. So there it is before 2000. Most of the orange peel is out, just a little bit of material left there. I'm switching to this block because it is very soft and it's flexible. No more hard blocks. Once you get into the rounded places where they're concave, you put the hard blocks away. We're not trying to cut it perfectly flat, we're trying to cut it smooth, and there's a big, big difference. I'm getting ready to touch these edges just right like that. Just that, right there. I just want to make sure that the area right below that edge doesn't have peel on it, because that will stick out. I wish I could give you the feeling in my hands through the lens. It's you can tell exactly when you're done with a certain grit. Companies like PRS run their tape line right at the edge of the fretboard, and most other companies run it where the fretboard meets the neck. And if you don't get this cut down, it's something you will feel every single time you pick up the guitar or your customer picks up the guitar. It is the first thing they will feel when they pick it up and test play it. If this line is there and isn't smooth and doesn't feel good, that is the first thing they will notice. The next thing they will notice is any blemish on the back of the neck. They may see other things first, but if you blindfold them, this is the first thing, and then it will be there in perpetuity until you fix it. Alright, now we're on to 2000 grit. We're going to do the whole face of the guitar. I already did the neck and the headstock and everything else, so we're just going to cover this whole thing in 2000 grit. Now this does not take very long at all to work the 1500 grit scratches out. So you just want to go until you feel it get slick. Here we are with the entire body sanded to 2000. And if you look very close in some spots, you'll see a little bit of peel action. I did burn through in a couple spots, so just full disclosure, things happen. So I'll have to drop fill some of this stuff, and that'll be a little bit of a trick to get that going, but I would say all in all it looks pretty good. People like Meguiar's, people like other things, but I like the 3M stuff. The purple
is superior to the yellow. But my body shop store, I get all my stuff at auto body stores. They had the purple in the step 1, they had the yellow in the step 2. It's about the same, it's just working time and that sort of thing. And if you are doing a car, the purple works much better. Gives you a little bit more working time. I do like to use a very, very small buffer. Some people like the big buffer, and I understand that. But a mentor of mine said he would do an entire car with a little buffer out of preference, because you don't have to worry about burning through, and it's just a lot more control. So I'm going to use a little mini buffer, and we are going to knock this sucker out. First rule is, I did this off camera already. Shake it, shake it, shake it. Second rule, never go in dry. Never go in dry, guys. So this is the first round. I'm hoping it stays in focus here. The camera doesn't like really, really shiny things. But you can see it looks really good, but it's a little hazy, and that's what that first cut does. It's just a little hazy here and there. There's some spots I need to wipe off a little bit better. But you know, just wiping it down with microfiber, keeping it clean, very clean. Now that we've got the whole guitar buffed out in compound, we're gonna move to polish. Last thing I like to use is this final finish, and it just gets all the gook off. And again, clean microfiber, and this is just gonna get all the crud from polishing off, give it kind of that last little thing. I see a little bit of haze over here. I can't tell if that's the reflection I'm getting or what it is, but I'll have to go back and look at that under some very bright lights and see what's going on. The world's most difficult thing to film very, very shiny things, but yeah, the top of this came out pretty darn good. I think, again, I hate to keep saying this, if I wasn't in a rush, if my shop wasn't packing up tomorrow, I would likely cut this top again. I'm going to try and focus this. There we go. I would try and cut this top again with a harder block on the flat spots. You can see the reflection of that light just isn't perfectly flat, and I like them to be perfectly flat, at least on the top. The sides and all that, they're going to be shiny and whatever. I'm trying to help, guys. I hope this is kinda in focus. But then the little hazy thing that I saw wasn't really real. It was a reflection of the walls in here. Again, just trying to see this, guys. Sorry. There we go. That looks like it's in focus. But you know, it came out all right. Yeah.
If you would like more guitar-related content, click that subscribe button. If you want to follow the rest of this build, click the playlist to the right. And as always, visit skyscraperguitars.com for guitar tools and accessories.